Please welcome Jacob Moore.
Good afternoon. So, first of all, I want to thank all of you for sticking around. We still have a pretty good turnout considering it's the last day of the conference, of a 3-day conference, and I appreciate you all being here, especially our visitors that are from out of state. And we are honored today to have Governor Stephen Roe Lewis from the Gila River Indian Community, which is directly south of the metropolitan Phoenix area. Governor Stephen Lewis was raised in Sacaton on the Gila River Indian Community. We also have the former governor here as well, if you want to stand and be recognized. So anyway, no, I threw myself off. Sorry to mess myself up. So Governor Lewis is his parents were Rodney and Willardine Lewis. His paternal grandparents are the late Roe B. Lewis and Sally Lewis. His maternal grandparents are the late Willard and Catherine Pratt. Mr. Lewis has a 15-year-old son named Daniel Roe Lewis. And you heard from Senator Begay earlier in the opening session, and it's also important to acknowledge that we do introduce ourselves by our families because when we meet others that are out, in the community, it gives us an opportunity to know who our relatives are or for them to know who we are. And so it's very much part of our traditional culture to introduce ourselves by our families. So Governor Lewis is proud to have attended the school from kindergarten to 8th grade in the Gila River Indian Community. He's a graduate from ASU. He got his bachelor's degree in American Indian Studies, and he's also pursued his graduate studies at the John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. Governor Lewis has long been an advocate for Native American issues nationally, and particularly in the area of Indian education. He was selected to serve as a board member for the National Indian Education Association and a delegate to the White House Conference on Indian Education. And before I finish my introduction, I think I also just wanted to share just a short story that when I was doing my undergraduate at Arizona State University, that I ran into Eddie Basha. And for those that are local, Bashas is a local grocer who had been around the valley for a long time. He's since passed away, but his sons continue to run the grocery chain. But really, his parents and his grandparents, were early store owners in Chandler, which is just north of the Gila River Indian Community. And he obviously, he served on the State Board of Education, was very actively involved philanthropically. And we had a conversation about the tribal nations and economic development and education as we visited there on campus. He had built a number of grocery stores in tribal communities. My father was the chairman at the Thanatham Nation at the time, and they had built a store down in the Thanatham Nation. And so I was very interested in his perspective in terms of job creation, opportunities, economic development in Indian country. And he shared with me that, back when his father and his grandfather had what was basically a trading post, is that, he was really taken by the decimation that occurred when historically the Gila River was dammed up. And that in fact it was a vibrant community. It had its own economy. It had a significant workforce. It was thriving as a nation because it had a running river, and it had irrigation, and it had farming. And that was basically taken away from them, and they were on this reservation or this reserve with really limited opportunities and no water. And that the Bashas store in Trading Post in Chandler had really one of the only water pumps within the area. And he said, when I was growing up as a little kid, I remember the wagons that used to be lined up with water barrels, and the tribal members would come to get their water and go back to their community. And so he said, what poetic justice has occurred in part because of gaming, but more importantly because of water rights. That if you look at Gila River and Indian number tribes in Arizona, that the development of casinos and gaming has certainly been an economic shot in the arm for tribal communities that were really destitute at one time, but found a way to be innovative and creative and come up with some opportunities to create businesses that, if you take all of the gaming enterprises in the state of Arizona collectively and put them together as one entity, that in fact they're probably the third, at one time the second, maybe the third largest employer in the state of Arizona, and nobody really pays much attention to that because they're so dispersed. But if you go to any of the smaller communities, whether it's Payson or say Pinetop Lakeside, that they in fact are the major employers and contributors back into the community in terms of tax base and job opportunities. But more importantly is that, particularly for Gila River, was that they were able to secure their water rights and are the major holder of water rights in the state of Arizona, and have a vision about how they're going to implement that water in terms of agriculture and business to add on to their diversification of businesses beyond gaming, but really becoming a major player in the state. And so, Gila River is certainly one example, but an exemplary example of what tribal nations across the country have the opportunity to do and that potential to partnership in the future. So again, please welcome to the podium Governor Stephen Lewis.
Skugtash, everyone. Good day. It's an honor to be here on behalf of the Gila River Indian Community. And I'd like to thank my good friend, Mr. Jacob Moore, for that introduction. And, our families go back a long ways. I know his father was a tribal leader. In fact, he was an extraordinary, historic tribal leader. And for the Thana-Atam Nation, Josiah Moore. And he was a part of that generation of leadership in the late 60s, early 70s, that my parents were a part of. A very transformative leader for his people, but also still a giant today, where his legacy is still alive, having to do with providing opportunity for Indian country, for his people, a visionary. And I think that's what we're here today, to harness stories of true visionaries, providing opportunities, and looking, as we see things as Native people, providing and envisioning for the 7 generations to come. Now with that, I know some of you maybe have heard the tragic story this last 24 hours of this young 11-year-old Navajo girl who was abducted and brutally murdered. And my prayers go out to her family. And for Indian people, all children, we treat all children as our own. And so that tragedy, I know in my community, as well as all Indian communities, we all share that tragedy together, collectively. So at this time, I would just like to have a moment of silence in her memory. So as I look out today into this audience, I see leadership and opportunity and hope. Collectively, all of you provide a pathway to success to those who need a bridge to achieve their career goals. They look for you for guidance, opportunity, and encouragement. And as a tribal leader, I represent the nexus of that for my people. Looking at ways where I can provide opportunities, as other tribal leaders do, opportunities for our college-age graduates, opportunities for our youth coming up, and opportunities for those community members that may have lacked an opportunity for employment, for education. Now, as sovereign nations, we have a trust responsibility that we always recognize with the federal government. Sovereignty, reflective of self-determination. But as a tribal leader, if that solid background, that base is not there, that lack of opportunity, that lack of a successful pathway, I see is one of the main challenges, one of the main, I would say, potential underpinnings that could disrupt tribal nations. I think probably one of the largest challenges as tribal leaders today is an unskilled workforce. And because of that unskilled workforce, that very problem that we have been tackling with prior administrations, that is probably one of the chief problems that threaten the sovereignty of tribes today. How can tribal governments run without an educated workforce? How can there be true innovation without an educated workforce? Of course, we know the studies. When there is a lack of opportunity, there's also a negative aspect having to do with social ills. What happens when our young children don't have access to education? There has been this phenomenon of the school to prison pipeline across the United States among all underserved communities, acutely with Native American communities as well, specifically because of that relationship where if a felony, if a serious crime occurs on Indian reservation, that's an automatic federal crime. And we lose those children. We lose those young tribal members into the federal penitentiary system, sometimes for years. And when they return broken, they return in need of healing. And that's another pathway that we need to look at as well. But it is, I would say, as a tribal leader, one of the most important social issues that indeed threatens tribal sovereignty from within. So we don't underestimate the influence that all of you have on those men and women who are seeking opportunities, who are on the outside looking in. We need to bring them in. We need to provide them with those opportunities. And I know that some of you, have a couple of alumni from the Kennedy School of Government, and I would be remiss if I didn't put a quote in. We're always apt to quoting past presidents, quoting intellectuals, but this one seems fitting. From John Quincy Adams: If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. So I invite you to seek out those opportunities within Indian country. Partner with tribal communities to foster job creation and economic development. Don't fear Indian communities. Embrace them. Those public-private partnerships, and I'll even rebrand it, those tribal-private partnerships, those are going to be, as we look into the future, those are going to be key relationships that we are going to have to build those pathways, those successful pathways to the future. Tribes, to be able to become independent and self-sufficient, there has to be And what I'm seeing more is partnerships. And I think when I'm looking at partnerships with Arizona State University, partnerships with those in those learning institutions, partnerships with those industries that can provide not only job training, but also partnerships for further economic development. I think those are going to be the key determiners in the future for Native tribes. And tribes, on the flip side, it's about trust as well. And tribes and tribal leaders are looking more and more at those partnerships moving forward. Because as tribes, I know tribal leaders, and for the Gila River Indian Community, we have a long history of being self-sufficient. From when Mr. Moore, when Jake was talking about our water settlement, we were a proud agricultural people. We provided for ourselves. We provided the crops for ourselves, and we provided for our neighbors as well. And when we fought for our water rights back, that upstream, where our Gila River was upstream diverted, which really set us for many decades on a path of both dependency on the federal government and also created many social ills that we are just healing ourselves from. And so within that vision of moving forward, of becoming stronger, of becoming more healthier, and of also looking at opportunities where we can create a strong framework in moving forward in regards to providing opportunities for our community members. So let us work together, whether it's in the areas of retail and tourism and other ventures. You know, there are so many opportunities that specific tribes have. As you know, tribes are not homogeneous, they're heterogeneous. We have so many specific different histories, different obstacles that we've overcome, and we've had, depending on the tribe and the reservation and the homeland, you know, there are opportunities there. Now for Gila River, we spoke earlier about our water settlement and about our natural resource, our greatest natural resource, which is water, and using that to provide for the resource that is going to keep us healthy in the future, which is our youth, which is our current community membership. How are we going to engage our community members, specifically within what our assets are? Our assets are historic, our spiritual, our heritage assets. And we're looking at ways that we can harness that moving forward. Of course, we've been blessed by having successful gaming operations, but I know our elders and those past tribal leaders have always told us that to not rely on to not rely on gaming, not to rely on gaming to be the sole engine of any tribe. And specifically for Gila River, we've looked at ways where we can diversify beyond gaming. And to that's where both our challenges and our opportunities lie. For Gila River, we've looked at ways where, of course, in many of the breakout sessions that you have attended, looking at ways that we can empower our entrepreneurs, our small business owners, empower our women in business, empower and expose our children to STEM curriculums within our schools. And that has to do with the responsibility that our schools have as well. I know most tribes have a diversity of school systems, and Gila River is no different. We have Bureau of Indian Education schools, we have state schools, some charter schools, some private parochial schools as well. And you know, to be able to make sure that in each of those schools that there is a standard of education being met for our students moving forward. You know, I had the opportunity this morning to send off with a prayer and goodwill our 8th grade students from the Sackatone Middle School and Gila Crossing School. We're sending over 50 students to Albuquerque to compete in an international robotics competition. And so they're going to be competing among probably some of the best young minds around the world. And the school that they went to, the main school, Scottsdale Middle School, I attended that school on the reservation. I told those children, I said many years ago when I attended, this would have been unthinkable that we were be able to have this opportunity to provide our children these opportunities to go out and to learn about robotics, to learn about science and engineering, and in a very fun and accessible way. And I told them that they are ambassadors of our community moving forward. They are representing what is best of our community, our future. So therein is an opportunity as well in regards to how we can bridge and make relevant the sciences and technology and put our children in a place where they can compete when they go off to higher education or professions or trades. And so, that is just as important as laying the framework for pathways. Now, to better prepare our citizens for the workforce, I want to list these as needs that we need to address. Competency-based education in order for our students to make the connections between life, work, and the classroom. Systems to track our students from grade school through adulthood so no one is left out. Stronger partnerships made up of education, workforce, systems, and employers in order to increase the opportunities for everyone. To increase the resources that can be made available and develop the credentials that will make a skilled and competitive workforce. Increase use of technology to prepare our workforce for the jobs of the future and to advance learning in the classroom. More comprehensive education systems that link learning from grade schools on through higher education and college. So the call is, and the challenge that I will leave with you, to education. I challenge you to create new and innovative systems for education that will excite and move our students forward so that there truly is no one left behind. I often tell people that when they obtain their education and training, that's one thing that they can't take away from them. To workforce systems, I challenge you to create strong partnerships with educational providers and employers so that a seamless delivery system can be developed for our citizens. A system that assists people in finding their passion, not just a job. And to employers, I challenge you to become actively involved with workforce systems and educational providers. So together you can design programs that will develop the workforce that you need. A system where all three partners are sitting at the same table, a win-win solution for everyone. So I turn to you as leaders to inspire others, to dream more, to do more, and to become more. This is my call to action for all of us. On behalf of the Gila River Indian Community, thank you. Masapa.